Here we got a 1987 Yamaha Warrior 350, and we got an intermittent problem where the electric start does not work. So not sure if we're going to get it to act up here, but we'll see what happens. There, it worked. There, it's acting up. Alright, so you've seen it turned over the first time, and a lot of times it will turn over multiple times and work fine. But here, we hit the starter button, and you can just hear the click. The clicking is that starter solenoid. That's this part right here. And that's supposed to click, and that transfers power to the starter, which is right here. My fingers on it. So the first thing we should probably do is make sure when I hit the start button, make sure that we got power at the positive cable at the starter. So that would be terminal right here where my finger's on. So that should have about 12 volts. It might even have under, because it's under a load trying to start the starter. But we'll see what we got for power there when we hit the start button. So I got my voltmeter, and one end we'll put to a ground. Hopefully this will be a good enough ground. And one on there. What I'll have to do is, somebody's got to hit the start button. I don't have somebody else. What I'll do is I'll just put jumper wires on to hold the terminals. So this I'll hit, I put to the positive on my voltmeter. Then ground I'll just do here. That should be a good ground. So it keys on. Now I'm going to hit the switch. And I got 12.3 volts. So I have 12.3 volts at the starter solenoid. Sorry, at the starter. So that's telling me the starter's bad. The starter has the required voltage going to it. It's just not turning the engine over. So this can actually happen to you out when you're riding. You can't get it started. And sometimes I'll show you a little trick here to get one going that can get you by. So if you have this problem where you got a bad starter and you got power at the starter, but it just will not crank over, I'll show you a trick that sometimes works. Okay, so what happens, I got the switch on. I'm hitting the start button right now, and while the start button's getting hit, you just hit the starter with something. Just tap it. So you've seen what happened. The starter's got a dead spot in it somewhere. The brushes ain't making contact somewhere on the armature or something. But the point being is, sometimes when you're out in the field, you can actually tap on the starter and get it going for you. But it is a bad starter, so it's only going to get worse and worse. So I didn't have a new starter here, but I got a used one right here. Ordered it online, and this is for the Yamaha Warrior 1987. So there's our, it's not a new starter, but it's a replacement, and it's an OEM used one, Denso, made in Japan. The Chinese ones are hit and miss. They don't last as long. Sometimes I like a used OEM one over a brand new China one. So I've had some success with the China ones, but also sometimes when you do have problems with them, it's like, why did I get it? But anyway, it's kind of taking a gamble when you get a China one. So anyway, make sure the key's off. We don't have to disconnect the battery because there's no power to here unless we have the switch on. So we don't have to take the power off the battery. So this is the positive cable. What you do is you want to hold the cable and try loosening it. There, it loosened. Because if you were you're using your hand to hold the cable. Because if you were to twist this whole thing, it could twist all the internals. The stud, it starts twisting the stud and doesn't unloosen the nut. So you hold the cable there, Loosen it up. I think I'm going to get a ratchet for that. It's kind of tight to see in there, but I hope you can see what's going on. It's the positive battery cable. Anytime I take a cable off, I like getting sandpaper and cleaning up the terminals. This just makes sure we got a good connection. Gets the residue off, any corrosion. There, you can see that's a lot better. And the 2 bolts that hold the starter in. The starter should pull back. Okay, there's our old starter. Intermittently doesn't work. And just making sure to compare it to the replacement we got. Mounting tabs are the same. The studs comes out in the same spot. Matching the gears up. Everything's fine. So yeah, that's an OEM starter. It's a Denso, made in Japan. So, and this is the O-ring that seals it when you slide it in. A lot of times I like just 2 reasons I put grease, just a little bit of grease on here. It helps it slide in easier, and it helps it seal a little better, I guess, too. Prevents it even from tearing when you put it in. So I'm gonna put a light coating of grease on there. We'll slide our new starter, our replacement starter in. Alright, and it's seated in there tight to the engine casings. You always want to make sure you can get it in by hand. You don't want to get it in and it doesn't get to the casing, and you don't want to use screws to force the starter in. So put our bolts back in. Gotta wiggle this a little bit to get them started. Put the second one in here, get it started. And just snug the first one. I don't tighten it until you get the other one snug. You don't want to tighten one and then tighten the other. So the first one's snug. We want to go ahead and then, now we can tighten this one. And then we can go back and tighten this one up. Alright, so we already got our battery terminal clean. The side you want cleaned is the side that mounts face down to the starter. Let me slide this bolt back. Tighten up the nut. Slide the boot back on. A lot of times with the older stuff, you know, boots and rubbers, they're not as pliable, so it's a little harder to work with sometimes. That's fine, it happens. Alright, so turn the key on, choke. Good. That's how you change a starter. Thank you so much for watching. I make videos like this often. If this helped you out or you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button below and consider subscribing. Please also consider donating using the link in the description below, which helps keep this channel going.
Hope to see you in the next video.